everybody. Welcome to another episode of Listen, Motherfucker. I'm here with my friend Ariel, and we are going to do a deep dive. We're going to do a deep dive into living life as a Jewish man, a Jewish boy, Jewish religion. I actually wish I had more. When I did my 23andMe, and it came back as 16% Ashkenaz, I'm like, man, I'm going to have to just go with a quarter. I'm going to have to tell, when they want to know, I'm going to have to tell people I'm at least a quarter Jewish. I felt like I was getting gypped at 16%. That didn't make any sense. I feel like I have just always felt more, I guess. And I guess the rebellious side of me wore it as a badge of honor, because I think I've never dove into the religious aspect of, Jesus was the King of Jews, and how is it that is it just because, and we're going to come back with a real introduction of you, but it's like as I've always in my own mind chewed on why Jewish people have always been, I guess persecuted is the right word. It's like, just because they don't believe in Jesus? Did the Roman Catholic Church somehow they're the ones that started all of this 2,000 years ago or whenever? I don't even know when the Roman Catholic Church was formed, but I
could dive right into that if you want.
Do you? Obviously, you know.
I can tell you why everybody goes after Jews.
Why?
So, anti-Semitism and going against Jews is the oldest hatred in the world. Period. It's the easiest hatred in the world. It's the oldest hatred in the world. And what do you always pick on? You pick on the underdog, right? So there's only 15 million Jewish people in the entire world. 15 million. That's it.
Seriously?
There's less than there was before the Holocaust. There were more people before the Holocaust. And still have never come back to the number.
Is that 100% full-blown, full-blooded Jewish person,
blood.
Or am I considered a Jewish person?
People that identify as Jewish, there's about 15 million in the entire world.
Okay.
8 million of them live in Israel. So that leaves only 7 million in the rest of the world. 2 billion of them live in New York.
2 million?
Yes. So now, that doesn't leave very many. That leaves
holy
5
shit.
The rest around the entire world. So
I didn't realize that.
Now, as a group of people, 15 million people have accomplished more, that's 15 million strong, than groups that are, not to really separate everybody, but just by fact, you take 100 million of this group, or you take 1 billion of those groups. The 15 million Jewish people have accomplished so much, not because we're better, not because we're smarter, not because we're stronger. It's because they had to. They have to survive. So they survive by the one thing that no one can ever take away from them, is education. Mm-hmm. Right? So most Jewish families, at least where I come from, education and family are the two most important things you grow up with. So they can take away your money, they can take away your house, they can take away everything you want, but they can't take away what's in your head or your heart. So, and my family prioritized it too. We had to go to college. It wasn't I want you to go to college. I'm not saying college is the answer, but you had to get a higher education, period.
Well, let's hold on. I should have, and so since you mentioned your family, let's give everybody a quick rundown.
Sure.
With you, I don't use last names just because that's my thing. So, what is your actual story as far as
my family's history?
Yeah, where did everybody come from? Your parents, you lived, grew up, etc.
We did a 23andMe also, even though I already knew what the answer was going to be.
Okay.
So for as long as my family's existed, up until the last 3 generations, they all were in the same 2 places. They did not move. Okay? My family stayed. We are from Transylvania. We are from the Carpathian Mountains of what before World War II was part of Hungary, and after World War II, which is currently part of Romania. So it's these two villages, Satu Mare and Siget Mare Maras, these very, very small towns on the Ukrainian border, that is on the border of Romania, Ukraine, and Hungary. It's right there, but it's currently part of Romania. That's where my family was for as long as we can trace it back. On my mother's side, I can go back a little further. On my father's side, I can only go back to my grandfather. He was adopted, and that's as far as I can.
Gotcha.
I can test. We don't know where he came from. But on my mother's side, I can go back, a couple of generations, but that's about it. But that's as far as we know. After communism came, World War II came, and everything where all you do is persecute Jewish people, that's when they scattered. So my father was born in Romania. My father was born in Bucharest, the capital of Romania. And his father, my grandfather, died when my dad was 5. So obviously I didn't know him.
Mm-hmm.
He was raised by his mother. And on my mother's side, she was born in Israel. She's one of 2 kids. And they left and moved to Israel. So that's the short, sweet story of it. But basically is I lost a ton of family, was taken away and all killed in Auschwitz in the Holocaust.
Mm.
We know of one single person, of all the people that were killed, one was a partisan fighter and was killed somewhere in the Ukraine. That's all I know, and probably a mass grave somewhere. The rest were killed in the Holocaust, and the few that survived, my grandfather, my great uncle, my grandmother, they all fled to Israel. And they were my father as well with his mom fled to Israel. The writing was on the wall, and you could see communism was coming, and it wasn't a safe place in Romania. Anti-Semitism was really high, and it was. Thankfully, my grandmother had the foresight to get the hell out of there, and they moved to Israel. My father had a really strange childhood. He spoke 5 or 6 languages fluently, not because he wanted to, because he had to. So he was born in Romania, you learn Romanian. You moved to Israel, you learn Hebrew. He went to a French school and in Israel and learned French. There they teach you English, so he learned English. Moved to the United States, worked in New York, owned a business, learned Spanish. And so he kept everywhere he went. He was a very smart man. Died 5 years ago. Very smart guy. And so he was raised in Israel by his mom. My mother was raised in Israel. They met as teenagers, and
in Israel.
In Israel,
yeah.
He was 5 years older than her, and I think their families were both friends, because since my father didn't have his own father, and on holidays, my mom's family felt bad that my dad and his mom would have to be alone on holidays, so they kept inviting him over, and that's how they met.
Got it.
He was an 18-year-old guy in the army, and she was a 13-year-old girl, and he's just like, get the hell away from me. I don't want,
right.
There's a big age gap.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's not, right? As you get older. So, he was served his time in the army, which I still don't know what he did over there. He claims he was a regular soldier. Based on photos I've seen, I think he was a little bit more than that, but I think he took that to the grave. I've seen pictures of his uniform. There's like paratroopers logo on it, but he says he wasn't a paratrooper. There's just things that didn't check out, but that's okay. So after the army, he moved to the U.S., made some family.
With your mom?
Nope. No. Came out here, actually married a different woman, got married.
Wow.
Yeah, the wedding was annulled after 6 months. He met a woman from Cleveland I don't know much about her. And then my mom came here later. And
alone or with her entire family?
She came here. So he came here, I believe, in 1967, and I think she came shortly after that with her family, with, I believe, her dad.
And do you know what about their life in Israel made them like, what, we should head to New York? Do you know?
I don't think my dad ever really truly loved Israel. I don't think it was a place for him. It was his adopted home, right? He was born in Romania. He only lived there until he was 5. But I even as we were adults, we'd go to Israel on vacation or see family. I have a lot of family there.
Okay. I
have more family in Israel than I do in the U.S. by a mile. And he would always, I think he was reluctant to go there. It wasn't maybe his place, or maybe he just, I'm not sure what it was. He took a lot of these things to the grave. He never really answered some questions to me that way. But on my mother's side, her whole family still lives there. Her brother's there, and her brother's entire family's still there. His wife, their 3 kids, and all of their grandkids. I mean, my second cousins, they have a very big family there.
Wow.
So I have probably 20 family members there between uncles, aunts, cousins, and second cousins.
That have literally lived their whole life in Israel.
Lives in Israel. Yeah, nowhere else. And, in Israel, it's mandatory military for men and women. Men is 3 years, women is 2. So they've all served, every one of them. And I'm proud of them for doing that. And I go visit them as much as I can. I haven't been there in a while, and I owe them a visit. But it's important over there. Everybody serves, otherwise, without them, the country won't exist. So.
And you were born in New York?
I was born in Brooklyn, and shortly after that, we moved to Long Island, where I was raised. And I had a really good childhood. I lived in a neighborhood. It was pretty, middle class, blue collar neighborhood, very nice place, safe childhood, whatever, in a very Jewish, Greek, and Italian neighborhood. That's about what the majority of the makeup of our neighborhood was. A lot of Greek kids, a lot of Italians, and a nice sized Jewish community. We had a couple temples in our town.
So you didn't get shit. You growing up,
No.
You didn't have to experience racism or bullying for being Jewish.
Not really. I can only think of one really bad thing that happened. We knew a kid in high school, who was a German kid. I have no idea what happened to him. Honestly, I don't give a fuck. But he invited us over. We all grew up playing hockey, and he was on one of our teams or leagues or whatever we played in. And he invited us over after a game, and which was pretty normal. You go to your teammates' houses,
sure.
Everybody has food or whatever. And I walked into his house. And this will stick with me till the day I die. And they had a big fireplace right there in their living room, and right above it was a giant swastika flag hanging from us.
And he knew. Obviously, he fucking knew.
I don't think he thought too well about this, inviting us over, but the whole team was there. And to the left of it was a picture of Hitler, and there was some other Nazi shit on the right of it, and I just froze in the door. I've never seen anything like that in person, right? And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And he goes, well, my father and his father were all members of the Nazi party. And I'm like, I'm not coming to your house. I turned around and walked out. I never talked to that kid again.
Really?
Never. And
no conversation about that?
Not a single thing.
Did other friends or teammates ask you about it?
Oh, yeah. And a couple of them actually left as well. I mean, because there was other Jewish kids on our team, on our hockey team. And I never spoke to that guy again for the rest of my life. I honestly have I graduated high school with the guy. It's just a really weird experience. That was my, you have kids that make comments, oh, you fucking Jew, you hear that shit. But it's more in passing or maybe joking, and you have to have a thick skin. And I'm in New York where I got thick skin. I can handle pretty much anything anybody says. But that stuck with me. That was like something, that was like a pretty big thing.
Because to them it meant something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's as deep as it gets, really.
I remember telling my mother about it, and I don't know if she remembers that when I told her. I was pretty young, but she goes, "You're not playing with that kid ever again." And I said, "Of course not." And I never talked to him again. It was just weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
So that's something that stuck with me. I mean, where I grew up, everybody's very tolerant of everybody. I didn't experience what you see in the world right now. Like right now, it's not a safe place to be Jewish in this country, and it's always been that way. But it was kind of, I think people found other things to argue about, and now because of what's happening in the world, it's the all the hate starts to come back again, and it's a very sketchy place in this country. This country is very, very bad, and you see it every day. And I am a very avid reader of the news, and on my phone I have, I think it's 20 different news apps from around the world. Japan, even Arab countries, Jordan, Lebanese news, Israeli news, American news stations. And my wife asked me, she's like, why do you read all that shit? And I said, because if you only read one source, you have this tunnel vision.
Yeah.
But if you read the left, the right, the center, up, down, every direction of it, you can form a very vivid picture of what's really true. If you can see behind all the bullshit, right? Doesn't mean that the guys on the left are all wrong and the guys on the right are all right or wrong. It just, you have to make your own opinion, right? But if you look at how things are written. I'll give you a good example. We're probably going off topic, but yesterday there was a bombing in Israel, a very big one. A bomb flew from Lebanon, from Hezbollah, from the terrorist group, and landed on a soccer field and killed 10 children yesterday. Kids playing soccer, innocent little kids, which I believe will probably lead to another war opening up this week, probably in Lebanon. And these kids were doing nothing. They're just playing soccer.
They're just living life as a Jew, as a human being. Fuck Jewish.
They're not even Jewish. They're Druze. Druze. Druze is a Israeli. They're Israelis who are actually Arab. It's a very small minority of like an Arab community but they're Israelis. Okay, they're not like Muslim kids. It's kind of hard to. They're like a little group in Israel, small kind of not a tribe, but a small population in Israel. They're Israelis though. And these kids were just playing soccer on a field, and a missile landed on their field yesterday from Hezbollah. Whether they were doing it on purpose or not, or misfired, who gives a fuck? It killed.
Yeah, who gives a fuck?
Children. Exactly, it killed these innocent children. And I start going through. I'm freaking out. My wife and I were out yesterday, and I had to pull over, and I'm just like looking at all the different news sites and this and that. And the perfect example of how fucked up the news is. One news site will say 10 Israeli children killed in Hezbollah massacre. Then you go to the Arab newspaper and it says, Hezbollah denies killing people. Just like that. Very vague. Then you go to the next site and it says, Israel could be responsible for attacking its own people to sway the war. And every site has a different opinion on shit. And then there's the day after, which is today, right? You start reading, now that they have more information. And they're like, the Lebanese deny it. And then they're saying, all these countries are like telling Israel, restraint, hold back. Why? Go out. Go out and defend yourself. And I posted on Facebook this morning a picture of these children, all 11 of them, 10 or 11 of them. And I was like, if you ever wonder why Israel has to defend itself, look at these kids' faces. And you'll see why. And you see all these little innocent kids that were just, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. Innocence can be. And that's why. So I know we went off topic, but
this is all topic. It's all topic.
So I think there's this: the world defends Israel until Israelis start defending themselves. Then
they villainize it.
And they villainize it. Exactly.
And so, what I've really struggled with in the past 2 months is that if I go back 7 months ago, every day, who is the villain in the world? Putin, and what he's been doing to Ukraine, war crimes, and on literally a daily basis, talking about just launching missiles into hospitals, apartment buildings, schools, whatever. And as soon as this happened with Israel, I haven't heard anything about Putin and Ukraine, other than Biden introducing the prime minister as Putin. What a fucking clown. Anyways, so we have now decided that we have made a hero with the Russia-Ukraine situation. We have villainized Putin for over a year and made a hero out of the prime minister of Ukraine. And which I'm not saying is right or wrong. I'm not saying that. But in this particular situation, when it comes to Israel, they've only been villainized. And I've sat at work and looked at a group of people that at break time or lunchtime and been like, if I was Netanyahu, I would have I would have provided a 4-hour warning. And from the border of Israel to the water would be fucking glass. And when they're like, well, how could you do this? No. Guess what, Palestine? If you would have called and told me, if 3 years ago you would have called and told me that Hamas is digging tunnels and literally just absolutely embedding themselves in your territory, if you would have let me know that, then I would actually believe you're on my side. I'd believe that you actually, hey, I'm not trying to pick sides. I'm going to tell you this is what's going on and we're not sure how to defend ourselves, so I'm just letting you know. But they didn't do that.
They didn't.
They did nothing.
I can tell you, if you want to go back and discuss that, it's important. So that all happened on October 7th, right? But let's go back further. 15 years ago, the guy that I'm named after, so I'm named after the famous Israeli, he was a general and then in the Israeli army and later became prime minister. I'm named after Ariel. Okay. My father was actually his driver in the army and admired him very much. He was a very strong, controversial, but very powerful guy. Long since passed away, but he every leader that Israel's ever had has tried, whether they wanted to or not, whether they had a choice or not, whether they believed it or not, to try to make peace with Palestinians. Okay. The closest I think it ever got was when Bill Clinton was president, and Bill Clinton hosted at the White House. He hosted Yasser Arafat, who was the biggest fucking piece of shit terrorist that the Palestinians ever had. He played both sides like perfectly. And Israel offered them East Jerusalem, 97% of the West Bank, and all of Gaza, which is basically everything they've asked for. Okay? And said in exchange for peace. And he still said no. And
Arafat did.
Yeah. Everything that they still claim that they want to this day, he offered them everything. And he said no, because it was not 100% of the West Bank, it was 97%, because there are Israelis living there. And they said, the other 3% we'll put into other areas and we'll incorporate that so it makes up for the total amount. Not enough. And instead he launched Intifada, which is their holy work, which is their name, for a pretty name for basically suicide bombings and bus bombings and everything else they did. And they gave him a Nobel Peace Prize, which is the craziest thing in the world. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Yasser Arafat. And I know exactly. So shows you how valuable that award is. So he came back a hero in front of his people, because the Palestinians would rather, it doesn't solve their problem. Even if you give them everything they want, then they would have nothing to fight for. Then they're all of a sudden responsible for themselves. And they can't be. They cannot be governed. They can't govern themselves, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in Gaza. But so what happened was they would rather have their end game goal, which is the only answer for them, is to have no Jews, no Israelis, no Israel. That's what they want. When you hear that ridiculously unrealistic and stupid cry from the river to the sea that they scream as they march all over the world and screaming there. They don't even know what river and they don't even know what sea, but they know that the Jews are in between there and they need to be gone. That's just the call. That is the call for the eradication of the Jewish people. However you want to say, that's their slogan. It is the most genocidal saying you can say. They're calling Israelis genocidal, which is ridiculous. And they're basically calling for the eradication of the Jews. This is the same thing that happened in the Holocaust. And so he said no. And back to Ariel Sharon, so 15 years ago, in another attempt to make peace, Israel said, we will give up the entire Gaza Strip. There are thousands of Jewish people living there. They had farms, they had schools, they had hospitals, greenhouses, they had synagogues. They lived there. And they were constantly attacked, but they lived in Gaza. So you had, it's still, these videos are still tough to watch. So 15 years ago, you had Jewish people uprooting other Jewish people and making them leave their home from these lands, bringing them home. And this was the chance for the Palestinian people to have peace with Israel. They said, we'll give up this land, take it, make it your homeland. Build a government, build schools, build hospitals, big businesses, agriculture, industry, whatever. Here you go. And not even before the last vehicle left and crossed into Israel, instead of taking all of the stuff that was already there and built, they burned everything to the ground.
Because it was Jewish.
Because it was Jewish. Instead of using those farms, burn them down. Greenhouses, break all the glass. Synagogues, burn them to the ground. Everything. Took it all. Burned it and destroyed everything because it was Jewish. And immediately, 70% of the people, 70% of those people elected Hamas to be their leaders. So for 15 years, all they did was the billions and billions of dollars of this country, you, me, we give them all in our taxes. Okay? This is what our government does. And we give them all this money in the form of aid and relief and all this other bullshit. They take the money away from what it was intentionally for, what it was supposed to be for, and they dig tunnels. Very sophisticated tunnels. They have electricity. They have ventilation. They have rooms in there. They have bathrooms. They have plumbing. Some of these tunnels are big enough to bring cars through them. Okay, and this is what they've done. And they've been Israel. They knew the tunnels were there because whenever skirmishes break out, they know where some tunnels are and they blow them up. It is since October 7th. It has been discovered that the tunnel system in Gaza is so big that it's actually bigger than the New York City subway system. Bigger than that. That's how incredible it is. They go to houses, they go to temples, they go to synagogues, they go to, not synagogues, they go to hospitals, they go to mosques, they go to people's homes, they go to businesses, they go to relief places, they go to UN
Is it
schools.
dug under Israel, or is it only in the Gaza Strip?
They're dug under two countries. Actually three. So there's a corridor between Gaza and Egypt, which is called the Philadelphia corridor. I don't remember or know why that's the name of it, but it's considered one of the most dangerous places in all of Gaza. Basically, it's a few mile strip where they smuggle everything comes in. They'll smuggle cars in pieces. They'll smuggle missiles in parts and then rebuild them in Gaza. They smuggle, guns, bullets, whatever it is they bring, and then they also smuggle people. And so Israel is currently in charge of the Philadelphia corridor and blowing up all of the tunnels that they find. That's the lifeline of Hamas. That's how they get all their shit in. So it's not a permanent thing because eventually they will have to leave there. But right now they're in control of it. The other smuggling route is a little bit through Jordan, and that doesn't appear. It's a little bit of weapons and some drugs because that's how they make some money. And then there's the Israel corridor. So these tunnels they've been known for years that they've been coming into Israel. Israel does their best to protect it. Since October 7th, they knocked, I believe it's about a half a mile buffer zone now, where they've leveled everything in a half a mile of the Israeli border on the Gaza side and just completely destroyed everything there as a security buffer. And they built, rebar and concrete and steel walls that go all the way down to the ground. I'm not sure how deep, to prevent tunnels coming in. They have vibration sensors to make sure if there's digging, you can actually feel, somebody, doing whatever they're doing. And that's for their security. But what happened on October 7th will go down as probably the biggest security failure in Israeli history. So to have over 1,000 terrorists come into your country by air, land, and sea, and underground, above ground, hang gliders. I mean, just it's incredible what they came in, and to attack all these border communities. And what happened on that day is the biggest massacre in Israeli history in Israel. They basically raped, murdered, burned alive, shot, killed, dragged them back to Gaza. They burned babies alive in front of their parents.
They didn't.
Yeah, they did. They burned babies. There's pictures of it. They burned babies alive in front of their children, in front of their parents. They raped children in front of their parents. They killed children in front of their parents. They killed parents in front of their children. Everything. They killed 1,200 people that day. Massacred them. So there's I don't know if you know what kibbutz are. Kibbutz are communal living spaces in Israel. They're very kind of, I guess in this country, it'd be like a hippie commune, right?
Okay.
So everybody shares the work and everybody does the farming and shares the food. And they have a lot of these kibbutz communities all over those areas of Israel, and those are the ones they attack. A lot of them have safe rooms. They broke down the doors of the safe rooms and just massacred the people in there. They're usually used as bomb shelters because these border communities get attacked.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed everything. It's completely everything that was there, every man, woman, and child. Also nearby was the Nova Music Festival. It was a rave in the desert. Hundreds and hundreds of teenage kids doing what every kid around the world does. They go to a rave, they get fucked up and listen to good music and have their childhood. This was going on while this attack happened. They just mowed these guys down. Hundreds of them. Hundreds of kids, teenagers, 20-year-olds, whatever it is, supposed to be having a good time, raped them there, and then killed them, raped them, and then they took 220 Jewish people, dead or alive, from little tiny babies, less than a year old, all the way to men in their 80s, across into Gaza, and I still have over 100 of them captive right now, dead or alive.
We hope they're alive.
They've had a few rescues. They had one not that long ago where they rescued 4 hostages alive. But yes, last week they found 5 dead bodies based on a terrorist they captured. They interrogated them and they got some info of 5 bodies that were in a tunnel. So, there's a lot to to unpack there, right? But
And so, just knowing all of that, how is it possible that why is there a widespread villain, that we're villainizing the reaction of Netanyahu?
So my family is very split when it comes to Netanyahu. I happen to like him a lot. My mother likes him a lot. My brother likes him a lot. My family in the U.S. likes Netanyahu. My family in Israel does not.
Mm.
Half the country, even in, it's like here, right? You take the current president, right? Biden. Half the people like him, half the people don't. I think more don't currently, but
Right.
That's another conversation. But in Israel, it is very divided. Every weekend, I think it's on Saturdays, they all march on to Tel Aviv, and they have these massive protests against Netanyahu for how he's handling the war. Why don't we have the hostages back? And I can't speak for them because I don't live in Israel. But I believe that there is no leader on this earth that has a harder job than him. There's no country in the world that is attacked every single day of the year. Israel is. Every day of the year, whether you see it on the news or not, 365 days of the year, something happens in Israel. Whether it's a stabbing, a car ramming, a missile coming in, somebody trying to gun down somebody shooting at a school, a bus, a suicide bomber. The car ramming is a very big thing over there. You have these Palestinians that get in a car, they see a bunch of people at a bus stop, they hop the curb and try to mow them down. Happens all the time. It's a very inexpensive and a very sadly efficient way to kill people.
So that we'll take a sidebar. So that brings us back to at the very beginning of this conversation, you were going to educate me on why the fucking hate.
So the hate.
Why has there always been this hate?
So the hate, at least currently, I can tell you, is that the disproportionate number of people that died versus, not. I always say this, and it's sickening to say it. Not enough Jews died. If more Jewish people were dead, the world wouldn't be as upset. But not enough. It's sad, but that's the reality. Only 1,200, 1,400 Jews died that day, and since then, a couple hundreds of soldiers have died, fighting. And each one of those is, the army's small but powerful in Israel. But when a soldier dies, the whole country mourns, and not enough Jewish people are dying. So the problem is we rely on, when you look every morning, there is a number released of how many Palestinians have died since October 7th. But the source of that number is the Hamas ministry, health ministry. Are you going to trust a terrorist group or are you going to trust reality?
Come on.
But that's what everybody publishes every morning. So currently it says 39,200, whatever it was as of this morning. Now, what people don't understand, even if that number is correct, which it's absolutely not, that includes people from Hamas. It's not innocent people. That includes terrorists. Israel has killed, depending on what you read or listen to, it's about 17,000 members of Hamas. So when you now take that number out of there, you're now in half of what that number is. The other problem is, and I'm a firm believer of this, if you are aiding and abetting Hamas, you're the same as them.
No, you're fucking guilty.
You may not have the green bandana on and your machine gun on your back, right? But you're still supporting this group and helping them. Then when you get killed, fuck you, and
I can talk to several black people, and they would, how many times in the past 3 years, whether it's BLM or just your average everyday black guy that you're talking to, silence, right? Your inaction and your silence is you're allowing these real, actual racist people to put a black person down. This is no fucking different.
It is. You're right. And when about a month ago, Israel got this intelligence of these 4 hostages that were alive in 2 buildings next to each other, and real-time intelligence that they're being held by families, by civilians, as you want to call them, but they're not, that they're being held hostage. This is the location of these people. Real-time intelligence said that they're alive. So what Israel did is they built the exact replicas of those apartments in Israel and practiced the raid on how to go in there, where they're at, and its information. Practiced it. came in with a full. Normally they do these things at night. They surprised them. They did a full daytime raid, which is obviously more dangerous because you're exposed, right? And got all 4 of them out alive. And this was a huge embarrassment for Hamas. But the bigger thing here that happened is that one of the people holding these hostages, there was 3 men and 1 woman was the hostages that they caught. And the one girl, her name was Noah. She was very famous of all these hostages because, each family has a story, right? Her mother was dying of brain cancer in Israel, and she said, all I want to do is see my daughter one more time. Well, they got her. She got to see her daughter, and she died, the mother, very shortly after. So it was a big deal, that story. Right? That's kind of a whole separate thing. But one of the stories that came out of that was these Palestinians they were interviewing after the raid on these homes, and a lot of people were killed. They were, harboring these Israelis. And he goes, I can't believe that so-and-so was harboring an Israeli. He was such a respected member of the community. Who gives a fuck? If you're harboring a hostage, you are just as much a terrorist as the guys who are digging tunnels and blowing shit up.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have a gun doesn't make you not a terrorist, right? So they were like, how could he have been killed? He was such an upstanding guy in the community. Who gives a fuck? You are just as guilty as they are. So, it's a tough position for when you're talking about Netanyahu. I think that this is a guy who has the weight of an entire country, an entire Jewish world on his shoulders. And I cannot think of a prime minister. Every prime minister in Israel has major things to deal with. They're always at war, right? Somebody's always attacking Israel, whether it's a full-scale war like it is now, or it's attacks, small localized things, whatever it is. And his job right now is, I couldn't even imagine the pressure that he is under. So he comes here to try to, he's smart, in my opinion. He met with Biden, he met with Harris, and he met with Trump. He's got all his bases covered. Whoever wins and whoever's currently there, you got it all covered. Flew to Florida, met with Trump, just in case, and then did his meetings here. A lot of it was to discuss hostage negotiations because this is the constant thing that goes on back and forth, right? Hamas has their demands, Israel has their demands. Basically, nothing really gets done, and they go back to the drawing board. There's a team right now, and I believe in Rome, Italy, that's negotiating because they're not going to negotiate in front of each other. You're not going to have Hamas sitting at the table with a bunch of Israelis. They have to have a mediator.
Yeah.
So in most cases, it's usually the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar seem to be the 3 countries that do the mediating. But Qatar harbors Hamas leaders. So there's 4. I know I'm all over the place, but there's 4 major leaders of Hamas. 2 of them live in Gaza and 2 of them live in Qatar. Okay. And as of last week, now there's 3 major leaders because they killed one of them finally. They've been looking for this guy named Mohammed Diaf for as long as I've been alive that I can remember. And they actually found where he was and killed him. The head of the snake, at least for Hamas, is a guy named Sinwar. His last name is Sinwar. He is very easily spottable. He has these ears that come out like this, and he's kind of has these Dumbo ears, and he's very, you can tell who he is. He was the guy who orchestrated the entire October 7th attack that started this. So the head of all of this is Iran. Iran controls Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, Hamas. All these terrorist groups are controlled by them. They don't have to get their hands dirty. They just give them the money, the weapons, and the training. They fly to Iran, they train, they do whatever, they come back and they can operate as, the different arms of Iran. You cut off Iran, that will slow things down. But these countries harbor them, right? Hezbollah is harbored by Lebanon. Lebanon doesn't want them there. Now everybody in Lebanon is afraid that there's a war going to break out because of what happened yesterday. It probably will. The folks, the people in Israel have no choice but to defend themselves against attack from every direction. But they can't do it without the United States. The United States is their best ally. Love or hate Israel, without the United States, there is no Israel. Fact. And anybody that tells you otherwise doesn't understand. And so they have to be here for that.
I'm going to back up just one second.
Okay.
The last thing, Israel wouldn't exist without the United States. That's a significant statement. So to interrupt your chain of thought, but please continue. But why do you say that?
So people always ask, why is the United States such a strong ally with Israel? Through every presidency, it doesn't matter Republican or Democrat, it's irrelevant. Some are better than others, obviously. I think Republicans tend to definitely be better to Israel than Democrats, but either way, they all have their back. Some more publicly than others, but the fact remains is that Israel is a small country, and they need the financial support, and they need the weapons, and they need the help from Israel. But it's more than that. Israel is the only democracy in the entire Middle East. There are some countries that have some forms of democracy, where people are elected maybe by the people, but probably not. But there's kings and there's shahs and there's dictators, and the Middle East is a fucking mess. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, so it is in the United States' interest not just to be pro-Israel, but to be, to help Israel survive. And I've heard many Israelis over the years say that they feel like they're the 51st state. I've heard that comment because Israel needs the United States, and the United States needs Israel. But without the United States, there is no Israel. And I'm sure they maybe find a way, or have to create new allies to find a way, but they need them. And
they don't need our money.
Not necessarily. I mean, the money certainly helps. They need they need planes, they need missiles, they need weaponry, they need protection, they need, but Israel is a pretty damn advanced country, and has created defense systems that exist nowhere else in the world.
Exactly.
And they share them only with the United States because that's their buddy. So like there was the Iron Dome, right? And the newest version of the Iron Dome is David's Sling. The Iron Dome is very expensive. And for those that don't know what it is, it's a rocket or missiles launched into Israel, and mid-air, a missile is fired and meets them in the middle and blows up so it doesn't hit the target on the ground. Obviously, shrapnel falls, but it's far less than
it actually blowing up.
Right? The next version of that is called the David Sling, which is David's Arrow, I think, whatever it is, where each one of those missiles that you launch from the Iron Dome, and I could be mistaken with the number, but it's over $20,000 per launch. So every one of those little few $100 shit rockets that flies out of Gaza is met with a $20,000 missile, if not more. It adds up. This new version, which is still in its infancy, is laser. So it cuts down. The costs are, I don't want to say nothing, but it's less. And,
right.
You have people operating it, sure. But now you have a rocket coming and the laser hits it. So I think they're using a combination of the two.
Interesting.
To they have batteries of those in the north and the south, which is where all the tension is.
I have coworkers and acquaintances that I don't even remember the name of it, but it's like it's a part of either Israel or just Jews that they claim, whether it's the New World Order or whatever, it's like, hey, these people with this much money actually control the whole world.
There's a lot. That's been the narrative forever. So
and that's just all bullshit.
The narrative forever has been, the Jews control the news, they control the Hollywood, they control the banks, they control the stock market, they control come on. So
if that was true, then Israel wouldn't need help from anyone.
Exactly. So that and probably a lot more. Basically, there are Jewish people that are bankers. There are Christian people that are bankers. There are Catholic people that are who gives a shit, And there have been very good Jews and there have been very bad Jews. Okay,
like anything.
Look, yes. Okay, there are plenty of bad people and good people in every, whether it's religion or society, whatever the hell it is, but they single them out and say that they're so powerful. The Jews control the media. The Jews control because because Jewish people own, let's say, some news stations, or they own some banks. Okay, so what? So do Christians, so do Catholics. This is just but again, it's the oldest thing to do. Just attack, and eventually, You just believe it. And they believe that this is this conspiracy against these Jewish people. There's 15 million of us. It's not that many of us.
And does it really come down to Jesus? Does it really come down to the fact that...
I used to have a guy I was friends with, and he used to tell me, and he attempted to say he was Catholic. I'm not friends with him anymore, but not because of this. We're just not. But he was Catholic, Hispanic guy, and he used to say, you guys killed Jesus. And I go, the Jews did not kill Jesus. The Jews didn't kill Jesus. They didn't. It was the Romans killed Jesus, not Jews. And I kept trying to explain to him. I go, there's all these falsehoods that are out there about Jews, and it gets spread. It's there's the blood libel. The blood libel is they say that Jews take the blood of Christian children and smear it on their doors during Passover. In biblical times, they used the blood of the lamb.
Of a lamb.
Of a lamb.
Not a human being.
But they still spread this blood libel. To this day, this is still a thing that people believe that this is what, yes, we go out in the middle of the night and we kidnap babies and use their blood to put on the fucking door. I mean, but you can't make this shit up. So there's this, but this is just the tip of it. This is the beginning. So you look at these the lies that get spread about Jewish people, right? And it goes back to the same thing over and over and over again. It's easy to attack 15 million when you're in the billions. There's over 1 billion Muslim people in the world. They have 30 countries. So you have a tiny little Israel that's the size of New Jersey. That's the size of what Israel is. Okay. And you have 30 countries that surround it, whether they're in North Africa or the Middle East, and even on the tip of Europe, like Turkey and Cyprus, part of Cyprus, and all these countries, and they all hate Israel. But you notice one thing. In all of the attacks that Israel's had, whether it was the Ottoman Empire, whether it was the Nazis, whether it was Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, the PLO, Islamic...
Israel hasn't attacked anyone.
Still, yes. So that's the next thing. Israel's still there, and those groups are either non-existent or still fighting. You can look at all of the wars that Israel has had since 1948. They did not start a single one. They finished them all, but they didn't start one. If you don't win, there's no Israel. Fact. So what happens when you attack an animal and you put an animal and you back him into a corner? What's he going to do? He's going to attack and fight with his life. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens to Israel. They fight for their life every day, for their own existence. And when you have no choice, right? So you fight to save your own existence. Israel has this tiny little piece of land that when people say Israel is committing colonialism or they're committing genocide, the craziest part about that statement, which is one of the biggest misconceptions out there, it's the one that makes me the most angry, is there are no Jews in Gaza. Not one. We left. Did it create peace? No, it created war. There have been multiple wars and stuff. We left. We said, take it.
Have it. Keep it.
And instead of turning into this wonderful society for their own people, they decided to turn into a war zone, and you look at what's happening today. So I just looked at this not that long ago, it's somewhere on my phone. It's all of these different countries before 1948 and now, what the Jewish population is and the Arab population. All these Arab countries, there's 100 or less in all of these different Arab countries, Jews left. But yet in Israel, in 1948, when Israel was granted its independence, there was 100,000 Palestinians there. But now there's 2.3 million. Okay?
That live there. In Israel.
Side by side in Israel. And there's Christians, and there's Jewish people, and there's Muslims, okay? And there's Druze, the ones that were attacked.
Yeah.
Okay? There's the world headquarters for this small religion called Baha'i. They're there. And they all live together. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's far from it. But they live together. In Israel, a Palestinian, Arab, Muslim, whatever, can be a police officer, a doctor, a teacher. They can be in the government. They can be anything. You can be a minister in the government. You can be a lawyer. You can do whatever you want. Israel is a free society. If you get the job and you earn it and you live in society like a normal person, you can have those opportunities, right? But a Jewish person can't live in Syria or Lebanon or Iraq or in Gaza or whatever because they would be killed. And they don't have that opportunity. So when they say that Israel is this genocidal or colonialism, it's hard, or they call them occupied, right? You hear that term all the time. How can you occupy something that's yours? You occupying your own house. If I tell you today that you're occupying this room we're in right now, you're like, fuck you, I live here, I own this house.
Yeah, this is mine.
Exactly, it's mine. This land is Jewish land that goes back. The reason people use
it's called Jerusalem.
Yes, and it's also called, people use the term the West Bank. The West Bank's real name is Judea and Samaria. Do you know what Judea means? Land of the Jews. This goes back, and the craziest conversation is, if you think about this, Judaism predates Islam by 1,500 years. Fact. There's no disputing it. This is just a fact. It's not me just saying that. So if you tell me that if the Jewish people were there 1,500 years before Islam even existed, before Muhammad himself even was on this earth, how can Israel be the occupying force of the land when it's their own land?
Right, because in 1948, we just helped them get it back.
Reestablish the Jewish land.
Yeah.
Yes.
This was yours.
Yes.
Now it's yours again.
Right. So you look at, and when you see pictures of Israel, you see the gold domed mosque. It's very famous next to, it's called the Alaska Mosque. Okay. There's two domes. One is gold, one is silver. The silver one is actually the Alaska Mosque, but the gold one is more famous because of the way it looks. That very famous mosque is the third holiest site in all of Islam, the most being Mecca in Saudi Arabia. This is the third holiest site for Muslims. They built that on top of the first Jewish temple. So if you're building something on top of my shit, who was there before you?
Yeah.
Pretty obvious, right?
Pretty obvious.
Yes, pretty obvious. The only thing that remains of that temple is the Wailing Wall that Jews pray at, which is right next door to that. So the problem with Jerusalem is, Palestinians say we want East Jerusalem as our capital. The Jewish people recaptured Jerusalem in 1967 during the war. And they unified the city because it was divided. Jews pray there. Muslims pray there. Christians pray there. I've been to Jerusalem many times. And guess what? When you walk through there, you can actually feel the history of these. You walk on these cobblestone streets and these sandstone walls, and you walk. Jerusalem is divided into four quarters. There's the Jewish quarter, Muslim quarter, Christian quarter, and the Armenian quarter. Okay, and when I mean quarter, I mean you're going down one small pedestrian street. That's the Jewish quarter. You go down the very next street, it's all Muslims, and they get along. They sell their shit, they sell their stuff, they pray, they do whatever.
And if I was visiting and I could walk down all four of them and no one's going to try to attack me.
I don't know that I feel, I've been in the Arab Quarter. It's not really my favorite place to walk around. I've been through their streets or whatever, and my family, probably shouldn't walk around here. It's not the best. But
Got you.
But everywhere you look, there's a strong military presence. I have dual citizenship. I'm an Israeli citizen and I'm an American citizen. But I was born here. I'm American first.
Yep.
And I wanted to go see that Alaska Mosque. I wanted to go see it. I was there, this was about 10 years ago. There's an entrance. There's different entrances to get there. And there's 3-4 Israeli soldiers, they're armed to the teeth and they're just standing there. And I said, hey, I want to go in there. And go, absolutely not. And I'm like, can I at least take a picture? And they moved aside for a second, snapped a picture on my cell phone. They wouldn't even let me in the grounds. The Muslims they let them have control over that mosque. Okay, just like where the Wailing Wall is, their security is unreal because it's the holiest site for Judaism. But I don't know that there's honestly a solution to how to get everybody to get along. But I know what the solution is going to be. They call it the day after in Gaza when the war is over. It's called the day after. Like, what's going to happen? What's going to end? How is it going to end? How do you solve the problem? What's going to be? Until this guy, Sinwar, the dude with the big ears, until that dude is killed or captured, this probably won't end. And until Israel gets its hostages back. That's one thing I will tell you. Israel never stops until they get every one of their people back, dead or alive. There is, outside of this current situation, as far as I'm aware of, there's like 3 or 4 Israelis that have never been recovered, ever, in any of the wars. Ever. There's a guy named Ron Arad, Lebanese war pilot that crashed. He survived, but they never found him. There's a spy named Eli Cohen who was buried in an unmarked grave in Syria, and I think one or two other people. Other than that, they get their people back, preferably, obviously, alive. The day after in Gaza, these people, Palestinian people, cannot govern themselves. They're not. They want their own statehood. They want their own country. Who's going to run it? The only temporary solution is going to be, which I believe is the solution, is going to have to be where they piece together a government and an army of moderate Muslim countries, Egypt, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, maybe or maybe not Saudi Arabia.
And that's who literally governs.
Goes in there and governs. These are countries that are not, I don't want to say they're friends of Israel, but not enemies of Israel. They're at peace with Israel. Israel borders Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and the Gaza Strip. I mean, this is not good buddies, but they're peaceful with Egypt and they're peaceful with Jordan. So they tolerate each other.
I remember at the beginning of this, one of the news things I heard is that I think someone in Iran, someone on the other side of Jordan, launched a missile that was going to go over Jordan and land in Israel, and Jordan shot it down, basically saying, hey, don't fucking get me involved.
Right. They did.
You leave me the fuck out of this. Which is pretty significant.
It is. My mother was in Israel when that happened. She was visiting her family when Iran attacked Israel. And, of course, I'm freaking the fuck out. My mother's over there, my whole family. There was hundreds of missiles coming in from Iran. Ballistic, too. Now, it's not like Iran, thank God, does not border Israel. Okay, you have a buffer of Iraq in between and Syria, and you have some countries. So they knew it was coming. They had time to prepare. Jordan launched some stuff. Israeli, obviously, their defense system. U.S. aircraft carriers and destroyers. A lot of countries participated in making sure that not a single missile landed. Now, one person died. One. Okay, which is too many. But one person died from hundreds of rocket missiles coming from Iran. But yes, Jordan stepped up, not because they're like, hey, you're my buddy, I want to protect you. They don't want to get involved.
Right.
It's their, don't use my airspace, get the fuck out of my backyard mentality.
Yeah.
So whatever the reasoning, yes, they did. So I think the governments of these countries will have to form some type of a temporary government, which could last for years.
It's almost like a Middle East version of NATO.
Yeah.
That's what actually needs to happen.
Yeah, you have to have, until they can govern themselves. So they want to be, they're what they call a silent member of the UN. They're not a participating member, not a voting member. They're not, but they are a silent member of the UN.
Palestine.
The Palestinian group is, yes.
Okay.
So, because in order to be considered an actual country by UN charter, you have to have a government, you have to have a currency, you have to have an actual infrastructure, you have to have a defined borders, you have to, and none of those things exist. None of them.
Have they never tried to? So in all the time that Palestinians or Gaza or whatever has existed, what's the reason they have never attempted to actually establish any official capacity?
Because Hamas is in charge. Hamas doesn't care even about Palestinians. Hamas cares about Hamas. If you look at the charter of Hamas and you look at the charters of these different terrorist groups, it's written in their group, like in their statement. The eradication of the Jews, the eradication of Israel, the destruction of Israel, however you want to word it, they all say the same thing. And
their only real existence is making sure that Israel goes down.
Yes, and if you look at, there's a very famous Israeli president back in the day. Her name was Golda Meir. They called her, she's an ugly woman, okay? I mean, but one of the most powerful leaders Israel ever had. And she used to say these very smart sayings that kind of resonate with people. And she had a few different things that she said, but one of the things that she always said was, she goes, there'll never be peace until they love their children more than they hate ours.
Yep.
That's what she said.
Yep.
And it still rings true to this day. The people of Hamas, these terrorists in Hamas and Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah, these people don't actually care about a Palestinian state. They don't even care about their own people.
Right.
The more Palestinians that die, the more the world hates Israel. Okay, so they don't like. There's one of the leaders. I told you there's 4 leaders. 2 of them that operate out of Qatar. One of them is a guy named Ismail Hania. This guy, his own family's been killed. His kids, his grandkids, his sisters in this war. He didn't give two shits. I saw a video when they were telling him that his family was just killed. And he goes, God bless them, they were martyrs. Doesn't even give a fuck. Doesn't even care. Okay? God forbid your family died. Wouldn't you be a little more upset? Of course you would. Anybody would. That's how little they give a shit. And another saying that Golda Meir used to say, which it's the most powerful one, is it says, Israel uses its missiles to protect its people. Palestinians use their people to protect their missiles. If you think about how powerful that is, and Israel has all they do. They're called the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, defense. Okay, not offense, defense. They defend their people. They defend their country. They're not there to start wars. They're there to protect Israel and Israel's interests. You have groups like Hamas. They stand behind. They want you to kill their children. They want you to blow up their mosques. They operate out of hospitals. They operate out of schools.
Yeah, it's all on purpose.
Yes, there's a group called UNRWA, which stands for the United Nations Relief Workers Association. This is a group where everybody in the U.S. and all over the world donates to this group called UNRWA, which is supposed to create schools and hospitals for the Palestinians. On paper, it's great. There is video of UNRWA members attacking and going into Israel and killing people. Okay? So, of course, Israel goes in there and they're like, hey, we found tunnels under these fucking places, under schools, under hospitals, under mosques. And so they're like, why did Israel blow up this school? They blew up the school because there's fucking tunnels full of missiles underneath it.
Right.
So they hide behind their own people. So there's a video. Israel used to keep everything they did very secret. But because the world turned on them, they released a lot of videos of things, which is pretty unique to them, the way that they've operated in the past. They've showed videos where they're raiding someone's apartment or someone's house, and they lift up the bed, a children's bed, a crib, a child's bed, and there's a tunnel shaft underneath the bed. Or they lift up a parent's bed, and there's Katyusha rockets and bazookas and shoulder rockets underneath their bed being stored. Okay? How can you say that those people are not complicit in it? Whether they're a family or not, this is in your house. Okay? And so to me, you're fair game. Okay? If you're participating with a terrorist group, you are just as bad as they are. So,
and even if they're like, well, if we tried to go against them, they would just kill us.
Yeah. And there are people that it's turning. In Gaza, people are fed up. Okay? There are a lot of people, Palestinian people, that are like, I can't live like this. We're getting attacked everywhere we go. And look, I'm not saying there's not innocent people in Gaza. I'd be stupid to say that if I didn't. Okay? It's not like all Muslims are bad. It's dumb. Of course there are. There's plenty of good people. But the people that support Hamas or are members of Hamas or Islamic Jihad or Hezbollah, all these terrorist groups, okay, every one of those people is controlling the other people out of fear, out of terror. There was a guy that spoke out against Hamas very vocally online. They killed him. Okay, you don't get to do that. You don't get to speak out. So these people are fed up, and a lot of them are finally like speaking up. And Israel sends these, not just Israel, but the U.S. and a lot of people send these aid trucks of food and things to them. And there's videos of them. The second they enter Gaza, immediately guys armed to the teeth, faces covered. They never show their faces, just their eyes. Come in and they hijack the trucks so they can bring the food and the medicine and everything that's on there to their Hamas fighters. They hijack the aid for their own people. So what do you do? So Israel has no choice. This is a war they did not start. This is a war that nobody wanted. But this is a war they have no choice. You come in and massacre 1,200 people, Israel has no choice. And the world, as usual, I knew it was going to happen. I said everyone's going to be very pro-Israeli for about a week or 2 weeks. Israel's got to defend themselves, and then shit's going to get crazy, and then the world's going to turn right back to the way it was. They march through the streets, they deface things, they burn. It's not just anti-Israel. They fucking hate the U.S. too. They're burning American flags. They're destroying, spray painting our own government buildings and all that other shit everywhere you go. Yesterday, I was down at Pike Market, and I'm sitting there with a family friend, my wife, family friend. The table right behind us, there's some regular dude. He's wearing the full Palestinian scarf. It's called a kafia. You see him. It's like a checkered scarf that all the Palestinians wear. He's just sitting there wearing it, man. And I point to it. My wife, I'm like, there you go. Here's another uneducated idiot who doesn't realize what he's wearing. He thinks he's showing solidarity with the Palestinian people. That's not solidarity with them. That's solidarity with Hamas. You by wearing that, you're showing that you support a terror group, not the Palestinian people.
Right, you support terrorists.
Yeah, that's what they wear. That's their shit. You might as well put on the fucking Hamas bandana and just walk around. Fuck it. You know, there was a guy at the Capitol the other day doing that. And like, how do you? They've been so brainwashed. It's fucking like TikTok and Facebook and all these fucking sites that sit there and like just promote this stuff, and it gets in your head and gets in your head. And again, you have 1 billion Muslims and you have 15 million Jewish people, and that's not just Muslims. I mean, this is, you know, you have regular Christians, white people, doesn't matter. It's the world's oldest hate, and it's the easiest thing to do is just blame, but not actually open a fucking book, read something, learn some history, understand, go there. Okay, you see, the craziest thing I see is the gay community, LGBT. Okay, it says LGBTQ for Gaza. Do you know what would happen if you are a gay person and you go to any Arab country? You'll be killed in a minute. Instantly. In Gaza, if you're found out to be gay, they throw you off a building. Public square, they throw you off a building. And you see these people marching. And I want to just go up to people and be like, do you even understand what you're doing? In this country, you are free to be whatever the fuck you want. Gay, straight, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, dress like a fucking whatever you want, do whatever you want.
A squirrel. Yeah, whatever.
It's the beauty of this country. Do whatever you want. Just don't hurt somebody else, but do whatever you want. In these Arab countries, you are limited to their rules. Is there a gay pride parade in Gaza, in Iraq, in Lebanon? No. Is there a gay pride parade in Israel? Fuck yeah, there is. 200,000 strong every year, right through Tel Aviv. You can be gay in Israel. You can be LGBT, and more power to them. Do whatever you want. I don't care what your sexuality is. Give a fuck. You can have whatever religion you want. It's the only democracy in that part of the world. And that's why Israel needs the United States, and that's why the United States needs Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only ally you have over there.
And Israel is nuclear?
Yes. They do not ever own to it, but yes, they are. 100%.
But we all know that if it got to that point, then World War III has started, and
Israel,
there's no coming back from that.
There's only been 2 nuclear reactors ever attacked in this world, and both of them were done by Israel. So in 1986, Israel attacked the Sark nuclear reactor that Saddam Hussein built. It was the most incredible story. They flew over there, blew them up, pinpoint, blew up the whole thing, and made it back to Israel before the first missiles were even launched. And then about 10 years ago, the second one, which is lesser known, is Bashar Assad, the head of Syria. He's still president of Syria. He was building one in the desert. And Israel watched it getting built, and waited. And before it was completed, they flew there, blew up the whole thing, and flew back. And not a word was said by Syria because they were never supposed to be doing it in the first place. Now, the problem with all that is people watched what Israel's done, and they've seen it. Israel's prevented Iraq from nuclear, and they prevented Syria from nuclear. So who's watching all this and learning is Iran. Iran now learned, okay, if we're going to build a nuclear reactor, you can't just fucking build it in the middle of the desert because it'll get blown up. They are building multiple nuclear reactors all underground in the mountains in these very hard to access places. Israel knows where probably most of them are, not all of them. And depending on what you read or what you know or who you or what people say, they're either extremely close to having full ability to make one bomb, or they're months to year away. So that's the biggest time bomb. Israel can never let Iran have nuclear weapons. And whether they've been, for years, if you watch the news, you'll see a car blown up in Iran. It's a nuclear scientist. House blown up in Iran. It's a nuclear scientist.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, it's been happening for years. Israel has their secret, their secret service is called the Shin Bet and the Mossad. The Mossad is, Shin Bet's in the country. Mossad is out like CIA, right? And these guys in the Shin Bet are all over the world, in every country in the world. And they send viruses through the computers, via email, and sends their nuclear reactors into a mess. There's been explosions, there's been car bombs. So they're doing things. These are all delay tactics. They're not necessarily going to end it, but they are prolonging their ability to get a nuclear bomb. When that happens, or hopefully it doesn't, but when it happens, that's when things are going to be pretty fucked up. Because
Iran supporting terrorism, which they've been doing.
Yeah. 1979.
Yeah.
Yep. In 1979, the Ayatollah took over from Iran. Iran was a beautiful country. It was free. Women wore bikinis on the beach and at the pool, and girls had their hair down, and guys could ride fancy cars in the street. And in 1979, they took over the country and made it Sharia law, where women can't show even this much of their hair. It has to be completely covered, and they have groups that go through the streets and arrest women if you're showing your fucking hair. You can't show anything above the wrists. You can't show anything above the ankles. It's that society, and these religious ayatollahs that have taken over, the Ayatollah Khomeini, and it doesn't matter who's president, right? They are the head of the entire snake of terror in the world.
Yes.
Okay?
If they get a nuclear weapon, they will use it.
I'm sure they will.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and they'll use it against Israel.
Yes, they will. Because even though millions of Muslims would die too, it's worth it to them for the end game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So whether Israel attacks them or whether they sabotage their reactors, whatever it is, they're close to this point. Something will give. And Israel was going to attack Iran a few years ago, and as far as I'm aware, the president of the U.S., I believe it was during Obama's time, had cooler heads prevail, I guess, at the time, and convinced Netanyahu at the time to not. But they were ready. It's a scary place, but I will tell you this. I've been to Israel 10, 12 times in my life. I've been there a lot. It is the most beautiful country I've ever seen. These people are happy for a country that's always at war, and for a country that has suffered as much as they have. The people are happy. They're beautiful. The cities are gorgeous. The people are wonderful. They're generous and they're kind. And if you look at this list every year, they always release this list of the happiest countries in the world. The first four are always the same, just in a different order. It's always the Scandinavian countries. Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, it's always them, just in a different order.
Yeah.
And number 5 is always Israel. Always. So as much as they go through, they're happy people. They laugh. They go out like they just want the same shit we do, just to live their lives, raise their families, and have a good life. They unfortunately have this. You live in a nice neighborhood and you're surrounded by assholes. That's basically the simple way of putting it. So I don't know what the solution is, but every day it changes. Every day I wake up and something else is going on, and it's right now is probably the worst I've ever seen it in this country and in Europe and around the world as far as the marching and this and that. But those people that are doing all this stuff don't even know what they're marching for.
They don't.
My wife and I we had this friend that we're no longer friends with. And when all this started on October 7th, she puts on her Facebook thing, she just writes Free Palestine. And I wrote to her and I said, why did you put that down there? Free them from what? From their own people? The people who write Free Palestine should be Free Palestine from Hamas, not Free Palestine from Israel. Free them from your own people. And we got into it back and forth. And then she started wearing that keffiyeh. And I've never talked to her since. And it is, the extreme side of it, people call them rape rags. Okay? But it is a symbol of terrorism, a symbol of oppression of their own people. It is a symbol of hate. It's not anything. When you see these people walking around, my blood boils because they're so misinformed. They're so wrong. And I'm not just saying it as a Jewish person. I'm saying it as just a fucking normal dude, a person who understands what's going on in the world. You put that thing on, you don't understand what you're supporting. And as Netanyahu so gracefully said the other day, he goes, all of these guys wearing this keffiyeh and all these guys waving these Palestinian flags, he goes, you are Iran's useful idiots. That's what he called them. You're exactly what they want. They can't believe how stupid you are, but they're happy to have you on their fucking team. And they look at
you obviously watched his speech?
Oh, I watched it. I listened to every minute of it. I was in the car. Perfect timing. I was driving from Blaine back to Seattle. I had a whole drive. I listened to the entire thing. And it was a great speech.
You were happy with it?
I was. I think he's a very good speaker. Love him or hate him, he's really good in front of people. He's a very, very good, eloquent speaker. He knows how to play the crowd. He knows how to play Israel's interest, but he knows how to play America's interest the right way.
And what I noticed is before, as he was introduced, every single person in that building was standing
Except one.
and applauding.
Except one.
Who was the one?
Rashida Tlaib. So she's part of that squad. She wore a keffiyeh in the thing, and she had a little sign. She had a little wooden stick with a round sign on it, and then on one side it said genocide, and then she'd flip it around, and on the other side it said something in Palestine, something. And she just held it up and did this, the whole thing. She's a Palestinian member of Congress, and she came there just for that, just to show, that, I support my people.
What state is she from?
Rashida Tlaib is. Let's see. Rashida Tlaib is Michigan. Yeah, she's Michigan. Rashida Tlaib is Michigan.
I didn't realize there was one.
Omar is Minnesota. She's the other Muslim congressional. She wasn't there. Most of them boycotted it. The usual assholes, right? Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. These are all the shit of the shit. And I'm not saying, look, there's assholes on the left, there's assholes on the right, but this group of people that they're part of over there on the left, this is the worst of American politics can ever be. Okay, I'm not saying necessarily everything I politically stand for is right or wrong, but to be the extremist on any side, going all the way to the right, all the way to the left, never accomplishes anything. You got to be able to meet people in the middle.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to be able to listen to other sides' opinions and other sides' stories and other sides' thoughts and other sides' ideas. Otherwise, nothing ever gets done. This country is so divided because there's no center anymore. Everything just keeps going this way and that way. You keep getting further apart. And it's not necessarily people, Trump this, Biden that. It's not that. We all have our own minds. We all have our own opinions. We all have our own. We all, at the end of the day, get one vote. Okay, but we're only a two-party system in this country, which is terrible.
Yes,
okay, you can't say the Democrats are always right or the Republicans are always right. You look at now, and I'm not saying that, like, you look at Israel's system, it's terrible. Israel's government's a joke. Okay, they have 54 something parties. Okay, and the only way to become prime minister in Israel, okay, and their system's worse than ours, is you have to form these coalitions. So you have to have the majority of the parties have to get together. So that means you're now getting embedded with people you actually don't like, but you hate the other guy more. So what happens as soon as you form your group, you immediately start infighting because you don't really like each other to begin with. So in Israel, you have the Muslim groups, you have the Druze, you have the military guys, you have the Orthodox Jews. They're a very powerful group in Israel. They don't serve in the military. That's a whole other problem over there. So now they just initiated military for them. They flipped out. Politics over there is a mess, always a mess. So I don't know there should be more parties than two. I'll tell you that.
Well, we're going to record a politics episode.
Okay. Well, that's where I'm at.
So, your mom lives in the United States.
Yes.
There's not one other than you entering that kid's home after a hockey game and literally experiencing that yourself for the first time. Is that the most significant thing that's happened to you?
I mean, directly to my face, that's one of them. I'll give you like one that just happened very recently. We went on vacation to Ireland. It'll be in July, so we went back in March, so not that long ago.
Okay.
And we went on vacation like most people do. They take a week off work and they go somewhere. And we went to Ireland on vacation. We were supposed to go to Israel, actually. We had to cancel the trip because of the war.
Yep.
And we chose Ireland. Ireland, there was Palestinian flags flying right in the middle of the city. Everywhere you went, stickers, Free Palestine. They are so pro-Palestinian in Ireland. And the crazy part about that is that they say that we're just like you. We want our own country because they're fighting their deal with Britain, right? They want to be separate from Britain. And my logic is, I'm like, do you guys need to clean up your own kitchen before you worry about somebody else's? They're so backwards over there. In the main square, right? We were in Cork, Ireland. It's one of the biggest cities there, second biggest city outside of Dublin. Right in the main square, the big flagpole that should have an Irish flag on it had a Palestinian flag on it. So the whole week I was there, and this wasn't my idea. I can't take credit for it. It was my wife's. She goes, why don't we go into like a toy store, a kid's store, and buy pages of stickers? And everywhere you see these Palestinian stickers, just cover them up with something else. Because they're everywhere. All the telephone poles, the flag poles, anything in front where it has any kind of street pole, signal pole, anything, covered in stickers. Not just Palestinian stuff, just everywhere.
Yeah, whatever.
And I at first I was peeling them off. Okay? And I felt really good about myself. They're everywhere. Everywhere. So we bought these 4-leaf clover stickers. About that big, size of a quarter.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And I must have had 100 of them. I just walked around the street, and everywhere we went, see one, pop a 4-leaf clover over it. Instead of Free Palestine, now it's got an Irish sticker over the top. You can't see what was below it. And did I do anything? Probably not. Maybe one less person.
You felt better about it?
I felt really good about it, yeah. And any business that had a Palestinian flag in front of it.
You wouldn't go in?
No, there was actually a brewery I was really excited to go try out. I like microbrews. And there was this brewery over there, whatever it was called, that I was pretty excited. 3 flags in front of the place. One is the flag of the brewery, their logo, and all that other shit. And the other 2 are Palestinian flags. And I didn't go to the brewery. I was like, fuck them. There's a brewery down the street, just had an Irish flag. Drank my beer there. Does it matter to them? No, but it matters to me.
Yeah.
And that was pretty rough. Everywhere you went, everywhere I walked, everywhere you go, you see it. It's in your face. It is spread to a point that you can't even go to these countries in Europe that are not really have anything to do with what's going on. And they're, it's here too. Everywhere you look is something. My neighborhood where I live, about 6 months ago, all of a sudden I wake up and I read we have like a little local town paper, and I'm reading through it. In the middle of the night, they came down to the main drag where all the businesses are. Not just put them on the windows, glued them so you can't peel them off. Like put this pre-Palestine, blah, blah, anti-Israel shit, put them on the windows of the businesses and then covered the whole thing in glue so you can't just peel it off. You have to scrape this shit off. It was with intent to stay there. On the telephone poles, on the utility poles, everywhere. And then they spattered red paint to look like blood all over the place, all over the town. And I live in this really cool neighborhood, and then everybody woke up the next morning, and they all banded together, and everybody took everything down. They painted where the blood was. They peeled the stickers off. I went out there too. I had a knife, and I'm scraping them off the thing, and it was just like, why? What did these people do? What did these businesses have anything to do with it? You know what I mean? Nothing.
No.
And they go from town to town. They hijack parades. They hijack local parades, like 4th of July parade in New York, right? Celebrating this country. That's what that's for. And they're in there marching with their shit. The Olympics are going on right now, right? This is supposed to be where politics is aside and you play for your country. Whatever country you're from, and you participate in a sport, the thing that's supposed to bring everybody together, right? Politics is supposed to go away. And they're on, most every Olympics I've ever seen, they march into the stadium. One guy has their flag and the whole team's behind them. France, they decided to do it differently, and they did it through boats going down the river. And each country had its own boat. It's cool, whatever. And each country has their flag on the boat, and their teams are on the boats. Okay, great. But alongside the rivers where the fans are, there's the Palestinian guys waving their fucking flags, blah, blah, blah. There's no place for that. It's just everywhere you look, it's in your face. So how do you think a Jewish person feels who, I don't want them to be at war. I don't want Israel. I want all these hostages to be home, and I want the war over just like they do. Okay? But it is so ingrained in this hate for Jewish people that everywhere you go, every event, everything is hijacked by these people. And then for the first time, they're actually hurting their own cause. People are getting sick of it. People don't want to go to a parade and see that. People don't want to go to a play at night and have people rip off their shirts and show Palestinian flags. People don't want to sit in a conference and have somebody do that. It has gotten so in your face, over the top hate that these people don't even know what they're actually doing to it's like I wish I could just sit there and explain to these people what you're doing is not actually, you want Palestinians to have peace? Start by getting rid of Hamas, not Israel.
Right.
The answer is there. It's right in front of your face.
They attacked us.
Yes,
they still have hostages.
Yes, they still have over 100 hostages. So in the neighborhood where my mom lives in New York, one of the hostages is from that town. he was studying in Israel or working in Israel, whatever his story was. And every single Sunday, they march. I was there, I saw it happen. They march from the synagogue that he used to go to, the Jewish temple, a mile or two down the street with Israeli flags, and they have pictures of him, bring him home. And they're not going to rest until their son comes home, hopefully alive. And the other issue is when they do get these hostages back, and hopefully they're all alive, they're going to be so fucked up.
Oh,
These
God.
people are never going to live a normal life.
No.
The women, guaranteed they've been raped. The problem is it's been more than 9 months since this happened. So if they've been raped, chances are they've had a baby while they're in captivity.
Yep.
Okay. And secondly, the ones that they have brought back alive, they've told obviously where they've been. They've been in tunnels. They've been raped. They've been, beat up. They've been branded. They've been, just subjected to God knows what. And they can never ever have a normal life.
No,
ever. And so even when you get them back, their quality of life, mentally and physically, will probably never be there. But Israel, I don't think they will never rest until every one of those people is back, and that's when it will end. And so these negotiations that they have right now, back and forth, and I don't look at them with too much optimism because I don't think the solution is just write it down and this is what I want, this is what you want. It's not that simple. It's going to be a multi-phase kind of.
Do you think the United States should have already or needs to all of a sudden stand up alongside Netanyahu and say, look,
you need boots on the ground? No.
Whether not necessarily boots on the ground, but that provide the threat of boots on the ground.
I mean, they've already done that. So when everything starts, when things start getting hot, they always send a couple of aircraft carriers and destroyers to the Mediterranean right outside of Israel. It's a very good deterrent. Like, hey, this isn't just Israel. We're here too.
Okay.
So they do that. They don't put U.S. soldiers on the ground. It's not their war, but they can still help the fight. Kind of like how they help Ukrainians, right? Still give them a lot of shit, but it's not their blood on the ground. If that's
way,
right?
I get you.
So, when this happened on October 7th, I emailed the Israeli embassy and asked to serve. Okay? I don't really talk about that too much, but this is probably the right place to do it. And I don't think the call for an almost 50-year-old guy with a heart problem is necessarily their ideal candidate.
Yeah.
But
did you get a response?
I did. Oh, yeah. I actually submitted it twice to 2 different embassies and requesting if they needed my assistance, and I was told that they don't, that they have enough of their own over there. But I told my wife, I don't think she was thrilled about it, but she supported me. I told my company where I work, and he fully supported me, my boss. I told my mother, she was less excited about it. But
with your dual citizenship, did you serve in the?
No, so I would have to serve if I was living there. As an 18-year-old,
yes,
a very long time ago.
Gotcha.
I would have had to serve for 3 years. I didn't. I could have. So when I was a very young teenage kid, I wanted to do what's called FIDF, which is Friends of the IDF, where you basically foreign citizens can join the Israeli army as a non-combative soldier. So you are helping the soldiers that actually have to go out and fight by working in their kitchens on the base, fixing jeeps, cleaning weapons, the stuff that you're not going to get hurt fighting, but you're doing some of the work to ease the work of the soldiers. So I tried to join FIDF as a kid. You go out there, I was like 18, 17, whatever. And I was denied because I was a citizen. They're like, well, if you come over here and do that, then you're going in the army for 3 years.
Got it.
You don't get that. So I didn't go to that.
Do you regret it? Do you wish you would have? Or you're fine?
I guess that's a tough question. At the time, I mean, now it's easy to say I wish I did it. I don't know what my mindset
I regret
was.
not being a Marine.
Yeah. I don't know what my mindset was then compared to now. It was a really long time ago, but it would have been very honorable to do it. I mean, just as honorable as it would have been to join the army here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my country first. I was born here. I consider myself an American first and Israeli too, but my heart is in both countries. My family's in both countries. My loyalties to both countries. My love is for both countries.
Did you have a bar mitzvah?
I did. I had a bar mitzvah. I did. All three. Me and my brothers did. All of us did. Yeah. I went to Hebrew school. I was not because I wanted to. I have Israeli parents, so I was forced to go, and I hated it every minute of it growing up. So I'm a public school kid, like most people. I went, K through 12, like a public school, like any other kid. But when school was over, 3 days a week, I would go for 2.5 hours on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday to Hebrew school. So when my buddies went to go play football and go drink beer later and go hook up with girls, whatever it was, I was at Hebrew school. And as I got older, it became harder and harder for me to be there, and I got more trouble. I used to leave class, go to the bathroom, and then go play video games across the street at the deli and go, and get trouble for that. I appreciate it now. As I got older and I maybe take things more serious as an adult than I did as a 17-year-old kid or 16-year-old kid, I wish I paid more attention.
Can you speak Hebrew?
No. So I can speak very little. I can understand more. I can read it. I can write it. Enough to be dangerous, but I definitely should have learned more. And I should have taken advantage. I regret it, and I'm sure my mother sees this. Sorry, but I should have paid attention to her growing up. Because they spoke Hebrew in our house and growing up, and mostly to.
Is it a difficult language?
I think so. I mean, you look at the Hebrew letters; they look nothing like when you study French or you study something, it's still English letters, right? You look at Hebrew; it looks nothing like anything. I don't think it's that complicated because I know what they all mean, the letters. But for someone that doesn't here. When you look at that, that's all Hebrew, right? It doesn't look like anything to you, right?
It doesn't look like anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I know what all this is, and I read that, and I know what this obviously says. It's on me, but the letters it's crazy to see Hebrew.
And it's like looking at Farsi.
Yes, you look at Farsi. To me, it looks just like somebody just went like this. But there's a language there, a very old one too, and So.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to convey about?
The only thing I really want to say is that, first of all, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you.
It actually feels really good to get a lot of this off my chest. I don't think I've had the opportunity to, other than small conversations with people, customers, friends, family, whatever it is, to actually just lay it all out there. And it was nice to get it off my chest because I have a lot obviously going on. But I pride myself on learning and knowing what's going on. And I'm not just this I'm not this dude that's fuck the Arabs and fuck the Muslims. And it's not me. But it's a fucked up world out there. And,
it is.
And I pray that it's something changes, but I tell you what, right now, it's hard to see anything positive out there for people that are Jewish or Israelis or it's just the hate is so crazy, and I don't know what the end is.
It's the strongest it's been in a long time. I can even recognize that.
In my lifetime, it's the worst I've ever seen it. It is the least safe I've ever felt as a Jewish person in my life, as I feel right now. And it's a pretty dark feeling to feel like we're going on vacation in a couple of months, my wife and I.
Is your wife Jewish?
She converted. She converted years ago. She said, "I think the religion is beautiful, and what do I think?" And I said I'd be honored. I never asked her. It was never anything when we got married. I was like, "You have to be Jewish."
Did she get shit from her family?
No, she has probably the most supportive mother I've ever met of anybody who is just happy that her daughter's happy. That's it. She supports her in everything she is. Her mom's an old hippie and just said, that's what makes you happy, go for it. And
fantastic.
The sweetest woman you ever met in your life. And she doesn't talk to her dad. And and I think that's important to her. And she takes it very serious. She's learning Hebrew right now. Which is putting me to shame. So she teaches me a few things.
Women are smarter than we are.
Yeah. And my mother's coming here in a week, 2 weeks. And
where are you going on vacation again?
The next trip, we're going to Norway. So Norway is an interesting country too. So they also have some very pro-Palestinian leanings. I don't quite understand the connection there. Whenever I go on a trip, I know this is off topic, but whenever I go on a trip, My wife and I love to travel. It's like our favorite thing to do. We try to pick 1 or 2 new countries a year. That's like I save up, go on another trip, go see another country, and because I love it. It's like my favorite thing to do in the world. And so whenever I would pick a country to go to, I fully engulf myself in that country's history. So right now we have a kitchen table in our kitchen that's a little bigger than this table, and half of it, right down the middle, is covered in maps and books on Norway and history books. And for the last 6, 7 months, it's all I read: history of Norway, military, kings, the actual history of Norwegians, Vikings, everything. Okay. Then I have travel books where I map out all the different things I want to do. So by the time that I get to a country, I know more about that country than people that live there. But I love to learn. I love to learn about stuff. So I just finished a book on a king that was king 80 years ago in Norway, and I know all about him. Just because I wanted to know what's going on. So when I get there, I can be part of this, not just some tourist walking around with a stupid map. I understand who these people are, and I can learn it, right? So what I've learned about Norway is, it's a pretty typical Scandinavian country. It's clean. It's very white. It's very, fishermen, Vikings, all that, the things you'd know. But for some reason, currently, they're very pro-Palestinian. And it bothers me. I don't think it's going to be the degree that I saw in Ireland, where the streets are covered in graffiti. Everything about Scandinavian countries is cleanliness, so it won't be like that.
Yeah.
Or I'm hoping it won't, but anything I've seen doesn't look that way.
To me, this sounds cliche, but it's social media. It's social media that the keyboard warrior mentality and the overall. If I see someone protesting something, I'm not going to educate myself about it. I'm going to know very little, but think that this is somehow supporting an underdog. So I'm going to start waving a Palestine flag. I don't actually know anything about it. I've spent zero time educating myself about the issue, other than, well, these people wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't true. So let's support Palestine.
Well, one of the things I forgot to mention is if you see a group of protesters anywhere, I don't care where it's at, mostly in the U.S., if you see, let's say, 100 people protesting, 50 of those people, half of them, are members of Antifa. Okay? Antifa needs something to hate. They don't give 2 fucks about Palestinians. They don't give 2 fucks about Israel. But this is something to get behind. Okay?
They hijacked BLM.
They hijack everything. So you look at they pay these people. Okay, I've seen there's this. I wish I remembered his name. There's this Jewish guy that walks around, and he goes to these rallies. Like when they were occupying all the college campuses.
Yes,
and that's going to start back up again when the school goes back in session. The only reason they're not there now is because there's no students there. So they started. This guy, he's a Jewish guy, and he does a podcast, and he does these YouTube videos. And I see him once in a while. I don't remember his name, but he goes up to these protesters, and he's like, "So your sign says from the river to the sea. What river? What sea?" I don't know. And then okay. Well, okay. Well, what are you protesting about? He's like, well, free Palestine. He's like, free them from what? I don't know. They told me to hold this sign. They handed it to me. These people are just paid. They're paid because before the Ukraine-Russia war was not sexy enough for Antifa.
Yep.
Okay. So they had the BLM movement. And they had all their weird anarchy shit that they went around, but it wasn't strong enough. And then this happened. And this is something they can get behind. Oh, we get to hate Jews again? Fuck yeah, let's go do that. So then they go out there and they pay these people. Somebody goes up and pays you $100 to go walk around with a fucking sign. You don't even know what it is? Sure, these kids are so goddamn stupid, they'll do it. Follow the masses, right? And they're a huge part of these protests are these fucking Antifa. And they sit there, and the crazy part is that when it was on the college campuses, they're bending over to them.
Oh, if my kid would have come home, if my daughter would have called me going to UW saying that she was just harassed by some Antifa when she was on her way, I would have been there the next day with a 12 gauge with beanbag bullets, and I'd be in jail for dropping kids with beanbags.
I have family that's still in college. I have nephews that are in college. And I asked one of them, and I saw him, like, what do you do when you see those guys? And just with a big smile on his face, he just goes, I just flip them off and I keep on walking. I'm like, good for you. but it's on every campus, every college campus, because guess what? These are the weakest minds of these college kids that are so influenced by just complete trash. So they sit there on college campuses and unite these idiots together. To hate Jewish people. So now, colleges don't just make their money on tuition, right? They make their money on donors, former college grads that have gone on to become very successful and wealthier businesses, right? So for the first time, these donors and these business owners are hitting those colleges where it hurts the most. Money. College doesn't care about educating you. They care about your money. That's all they want. It's a business. College is a business. Okay, you spend an insane amount of money to have this piece of paper that says, I went to this college. That's it, okay? So what they're doing is they're hitting where it hurts the most. Donors. So these very, very wealthy donors who donate blindly every year to their college have started to pull their money back. And all of a sudden the school's like, fuck. We're not talking about a couple $1,000 donations. We're talking about some guys that would donate $100 million. I've seen it. They're out there. I'm pulling my money. And so one of them, I forget which school it was. I believe it was Columbia in New York, which is one of the worst cesspools of anti-Semitism I've ever seen, is he pulled a $240 million grant to the college. Okay? It's a lot of fucking money, dude. Okay?
He pulled it because of
the hate, and he's Jewish. He said, I was going to donate this money. He's an old man. And he goes, this was going to be my legacy to this college because I went there. And $240 million is not chump change. And he said, I'm no longer giving you this money. And he donated it to a university in Israel instead. That's the biggest fuck you can give these people. And now it hurts because guess what's happening? Enrollment is now down at all of these colleges that let this shit happen.
Yep.
So now they're like, fuck, people aren't coming here. Before they're fighting to get into your colleges. Now enrollment, they can't fill it. And they're going to the schools where the riots didn't happen. So it's turning slowly, very slowly, but it's happening. And it's not going to change anything, but it sure hurts. So I don't know. Just, we live in a fucked up world.
We live in a fucked up world.
So,
well, I appreciate you being willing to. I mean, it doesn't get more personal.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't get more personal than this conversation. And
thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And like I said at the very beginning of this, I wish I could back up more than 16% because I would fly that flag even more proudly and tell more people.
I will tell you this, that other than Orthodox Jews who only believe that Orthodox Jews are Jewish, anybody to me that either has the blood, wants to be part of it, you're Jewish to me. You're Jewish to me.
Perfect.
Okay? And I differentiate no difference between any of it to me. And anybody, don't even have to be Jewish. Anybody that supports Israel, I give you my thank you, but we need it. So
yeah,
that's it.
I hear that. All right. Well,
thank you.
Appreciate it.
How's that?